everyone. This is Elena Bartosz, your real estate investor. Today, my podcast, as usual, is always about real estate, is specifically about private money in real estate for real estate investors. And my goal always is to bring the best value, guys, for you. And today, I'm extremely lucky because today my speaker is my guest, private money lender, real estate investor with 20 years experience, Sharon Riddle. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Lena. It's great to be with you today.
Thank you so much. I feel really extremely lucky myself having you today. How are you? How is your day?
It's a great day here in Denton, Texas. The weather's always already warm, but that's kind of how things roll in Texas. But always have an eye on real estate for sure. So you and I had that conversation earlier. So that's what we think about. We think about money and we think about real estate, and we're women, and that's what we do.
Yep. It's not easy to be a woman in real estate, but in the same time, it gives us courage and it gives us a chance to stay in tonus, being entrepreneurs in real estate, right?
It really does. And I will say to all the women out there and to some of your male listeners too, women can navigate the real estate industry. It may be male dominated, but there's a way to garner rapport with brokers, with operators, with contractors, and certainly with those who are providing the debt. So the loan originators out there. So I think the main thing is just really be yourself and communicate as your authentic self. Bring yourself to the table.
Yep, absolutely. Sharon, I agree with you 100%. So, I believe not everyone knows who is Sharon Riddle. Could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, well, before I was in real estate, I was a financial analyst and a senior business analyst. So I brought those cross skills into my 20-year journey. It started in single family. So I spent over a decade in single family, self-managing our company's portfolio. In 2015, so for a decade, I've been in multifamily as a limited partner. So certainly reading all of those monthly reports and keeping on top of what is going on multifamily properties. And I did that for the scale. But each one of these real estate groups, they're relying on investors. When I was in single family and banks weren't loaning, like during 2008, 2009 time period, that's when I was working with some excellent private lenders, and they would go from project to project. That's where I picked up some HUD properties. I picked up some REOs. And even though I thought in the beginning, Dan and I thought in the beginning that we would be flipping properties, that didn't quite work out for us, that business model. So we ended up being landlords, and we ended up having some long-term tenants. In fact, when we were pivoting over to multifamily more, we were really having to sell properties, and we were having to tell some of these long-term tenants, we're needing to sell the property. The time has come. They've had a decade in the property. We kind of really had to do that. And then we were going for a little bigger scale with multifamily, and we had invested in 18 multifamily properties during the decade. I had a small triple net fund too. So for your listeners, a triple net is only a long-term lease. So you have some tenants, and it's a long-term lease, and that can generate some cash flow if you have a really great person you're working with regarding that. And then it's so interesting, Elena, how things can go back full cycle all over again. because at this point in time, for the last 6 months, Dan and I have also been private lenders. And it was somebody that I met at my second mentors retreat. I have two mentors, one in multifamily, that's Brad Sumrock, and the second one is Hunter Thompson, and that is really for more capital raising. However, a lot of people in
Mhm.
that mastermind are in a lot of different asset classes, so you can end up being different people's investor, and that's kind of how things work a lot of times. You just see what you do is you just see an opportunity, and you're like, well, I can see myself in that place with my skill sets and with the capital that I have to deploy. Um, I can make that opportunity work for me.
Yep, yep. Do you remember your first experience working with private lenders? Uh, how many years ago it was? And do you remember how did you build relationship? How did you find people? What was the really memorable for you?
Well, interestingly enough, a person that I would have thought would have been the last person on the planet to be my private lender was my late father-in-law, Charles Riddle. He had retired out of Arco Oil and Gas in the geophysical department, but he came up to Dan and I, and he really understood that real estate was a wealth vehicle. And he
Mhm.
agreed to be our private lender on two of our properties. After Dan and I had gone to Alan Cowgill's boot camp to have more tools to be able to work with private lenders. So that really kind of gave us some momentum. And then it ended up being uh, a friend of Dan's who he'd had a long-term relationship with, even in his early 20s, and he was an IT guy. And then it was like his neighbor who was a banker, and he understood some of the value of real estate. So it just kind of snowballed from there. And when we would sell some properties, they would just clamor to be on another project. And so that's kind of
Mm.
how we grew that portfolio. And I don't want to forget the only woman in the mix. That was my neighbor down the street here in Denton, Texas, and she's a nurse, but she had a small rental property in Denton, so she really understood this. And she's like, oh well, this is a whole lot less effort than being uh, a landlord. And she came on as one of our private lenders. So we just kind of had this group just kind of churning along. But then we ended up, accepting an invitation from a single family coach to Brad Sumrock's event. So that just was kind of a whole different scale to bring investors along with in the future. That is what we are looking forward to in the future. But going full cycle, that opportunity in St. Louis with a fellow mastermind um, person with Raise Masters. We were just at a retreat in San Diego. He brought this up, and his model was really kind of unique. And he
Mhm.
had some single family property, but he had some set aside properties for fire insurance. So it wasn't a tenant paying the rent, it was the fire insurance company. So
Mm.
I thought that was very interesting business model and very unique. And so yeah, we agreed to kind of jump on that.
Yep, very interesting. And do you remember how many years ago it happened? Your first experience with private lenders?
Oh wow, I think it was probably well, it had to be 2008, 2009.
Oh,
Starting out
oh my.
because we weren't getting those loans. So,
Mhm.
it was just the sequential years. And in fact, I would go into the bank, and that's back when you were physically making the rent check, depositing all those rent checks from the tenants. And I had a loan officer. He was like my first loan officer. And he said, "Come in here, girl.
Mm.
What are you doing? You're just depositing those checks. You're not talking to me about, loan, having a loan originated." And I'm like, "Well, I'm working with private lenders, Eric. That's what I've got going on." And he's like, "Oh, wow. I knew sooner or later you'd figure out another way to be doing that versus just working with the banks." And the private lenders were really great working with. And I already had a pre-existing relationship with a real estate attorney here in Dallas, Texas, Gayleen Rogers Lonergan, and she would create the promissory notes. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we had a whole system going on there, and in fact, I'd recently been on her podcast. So yeah,
Mm.
talk
Wonderful.
talk
Wonderful.
about all that. Yeah. So that
Network.
kind of
Network.
well, and I met Gayleen at a vendor fair. So you never know if you're going to meet somebody at a vendor fair, or even one of my early coaches, I met at a meetup. So
Mm.
yes, and those are still viable options for people to meet other investors and other partners, other partners as well. So you're always wanting to meet people. That's kind of the thing. If you're working with private lenders, or you actually have some opportunity where you are a private lender. There's just a lot of
Yep.
opportunity to meet people. And the main thing is, if you've got people who have real estate on the brain a lot, that's always going to be a good opportunity to
Yeah.
have opportunities where you're going to have some cash flow, or you're going to have some tax advantage. So Dan
Mm-hmm.
has kind of been really taking a look at those two options, because uh, let's face it, multifamily, uh, they've had some distribution pauses because some people have had some
Mm-hmm.
very great loans, bridges, things of that nature. And but with multifamily, you always made, just like with single family, you always made the substantial gain on the exit, on the
Mm-hmm.
sale. And
Yeah.
it's the
Something
same with
new.
single family as it is with multifamily. And since we've gone full cycle on about half of my portfolio with multifamily, we've definitely seen that gain. And we are accredited investors, and because we are accredited investors, that means we're always looking for those opportunities to grow our money. And what we're doing is we were really building family uh, wealth legacy. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so interesting story. I believe you had a different situation during these 20 years. So let's come back a little bit to the beginning of your journey. So when you started working with private lenders, do you remember any funny or maybe not too funny mistakes you've made and you would never repeat this?
Well, I will tell you, Alan Cowgill, when he was coaching us, told both Dan and I, there is going to be a time where you're going to have to fire a private lender. I thought he was crazy.
Mm,
I didn't think it was ever going to happen. But I will say, well, the good thing is that Dan and I were able to save the friendship. However, the friend who was, in the IT profession, wasn't really a person who was cut out to be a private lender, because
mm,
what you want with private lenders too, and I'm glad we're talking about this, you want no drama. You just want this, the steady cash flow. The business transaction is working out for everybody. But if you have a
yep.
private lender that starts introducing drama into the business relationship, you don't want that. You don't have to repeat it. You don't have to keep them forever. You just don't have to bring them on a future project. And for the longest time, Dean and I really didn't discuss even being multifamily investors with this individual. We wanted to keep that relationship just a friendship because just too much drama. You don't want dramatic people as private lenders.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, Sharon, actually, mostly people who I speak with, they mostly speak about what investors should do to attract lender, to build relationship. Actually, you're first person who touched this topic. Investors should vet lenders as well, and this is
They
really
should.
relationship for the
And
both, right?
and the reason that it was even on our radar, and
Mm-hmm.
we really didn't feel bad to just not bring this investor on another project, is because Alan Cowgill had really given us that really, really wise advice. And he
Mm-hmm.
had seen that situation multiple times because he was kind of a pioneer in in the whole private lender space as far as training people
Mm-hmm.
how to do it. And he has, he still has private lenders himself, and he had private lenders way before the 2008 2009 credit crunch time period. So I thought it was useful to really bring that up because Alan had given us that advice
Mm-hmm.
all those years ago in 2008 2009 when we went to his boot camp. And he would allow us, since we were kind of alumni, he would allow us to come to some of his other events that were like in Dallas that we could meet with his SEC attorney. And, he was always giving us some really good
Mm-hmm.
advice.
Great, great. And this, I believe 20 years ago, nobody heard about DSCR loans. So to scale private money probably was the only one option for investors.
Right. And now, talking about DSCR loans, Levi Bloom, he talks about it a lot on LinkedIn, because he's a
Mm,
person that I interact with on LinkedIn, and he's a loan originator.
great, great. Okay, so uh, what are the main lessons you brought from the beginning of your journey? Maybe mistakes, maybe something great, something you learned from lenders.
Okay, well, that was one of them. I will say, as far as the lenders themselves, um, the other lenders, they were pretty steady people. They're very, very pragmatic, very very analytical. Because
Mhm,
my father-in-law was very analytical because he'd been geophysical department of Arca Oil and Gas. The banker, very analytical, former banker. He had retired out as a banker, and
mhm,
then the nurse. She was always having to uh, work with numbers. So I would say if another really great prospect for private lenders would be people who have to use numbers in some capacity. If they could be like even a math teacher, could be in the medical field. You have a lot of numbers you have to use there. Um, Oil and gas people have to use a lot of numbers. People
mhm,
who are in finance have to use a lot of numbers. Uh, Scientists have to use a lot of numbers. Just people and engineers certainly have to use a lot of numbers. So they acclimate the quickest. They really do acclimate the quickest because they use those in their careers and in everyday life, and they have an aptitude for numbers.
mhm. Yeah. Sharon, just wanted to remind guys who are with us right now and who will be watching us in the future. So our podcast today about private money in real estate. And my guest is wonderful lady. She is 20 years in real estate. She has various experience as a real estate investor, as a private lender, Sharon Riddle. So I will put her link to Sharon's Facebook under this video. So in the future, if you will need to reach out to Sharon directly, please feel free to do so and using her direct link to her Facebook. Great, Sharon. Thank you so much. I'm really feel myself extremely lucky having you today because I know your experience is so cool. And you told me you are taking mentorship all the time, right? Since you started real estate.
Right. Well, in the very beginning, I had a single family coaches. So, and some people may not remember this name, but some of them who've been in real estate a long time will remember Russ Whitney. And that organization was out of Florida. And and even now, one of the coaches in that organization was single family. He was more a wholesale person. He is he still has a long term meetup in Fort Worth, Texas. It's called One RE Club. And, Dan and I are sponsors of that club now, one of the sponsors. And we're going on our second year sponsoring One RE Club. But Jimmy Reed has been the organizer of that. And he's taught a lot of people a lot of real estate over even a longer arc than I have been in real estate. But then, Brad Sumrock, multifamily, that's kind of been his lane. He's been a mentor of mine. I've been in his mastermind. And then Hunter Thompson, I needed more tools in my tool chest. My dad was a construction subcontractor, so tools were very important around our house. So I needed some tools in my tool chest in the capital raise side of things. And we also learn a lot of other things in Hunter Thompson's mastermind as well. So I'm a big proponent of mentors, and of coaches. And I learn many, many things from my peers in my mentoring communities, in Jimmy's community, because I'm interfaced with a lot of people because we're sponsors in that meetup. And then in my other mastermind too, with Hunter Thompson, I'm always learning things, and people are always communicating with me, whether it's with Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, or dropping a note in my website as well. But we're always in communication because what I have found in any of the real estate communities, they really become very tight-knit groups. And your peers can really, really have your back. They're letting you know what's going on in the environment. They're letting you know, what's happening with debt. They're just keeping you abreast of what's going on. And even some of my general partners that I've been a limited partner with in multifamily, I still go to the huddles and the other events that Reap Equity puts on, because they do a really great job with training their investors as well. And we've been investors with them more than one time. So there's just a lot of opportunity to learn and stay abreast.
Yep.
And in fact, tomorrow I will be on a Marcus and Millichap webcast, and they're talking about economic distress, thing of that nature. So just knowing what is going on in the economy, whether it's micro or macro, and then also knowing what's going on in certain real estate asset classes in those as well. So I do a lot of research as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely fair because you're an investor. You have to take your hands on the pulse.
You have to all the time.
Yeah, you have to learn. You have to get some new knowledge because dynamic is very, very fast on this market. And actually,
economic drivers are very fluid right now too.
Yeah. So even though I believe situation with private lenders and private money changed a lot since you started, now we have syndicates. Now we have funds, right? People don't have to chase private lenders like it was maybe even 5 years ago. I guess with private money lenders, it's kind of easier to find them because someone already created funds, right? And united private lenders under these funds. But still, let's talk a little bit about our main topic, about win-win situation. So what investors should understand when we were speaking about win-win in real estate, what do you
Right.
think we as an investors should understand and should bring on the table to create win-win situation for all
Well,
of us?
I will say always be knowledgeable. Always be knowledgeable. Pardon me, and make sure that that you really thoroughly understand any legal documents. That's always
Mm,
highly useful for real estate investors. The instrument of choice really was promissory notes for um, private lenders, and I've had to sign. Dan and I have had a private promissory note recently regarding an investment that we're engaged in. But then
mhm,
also the SEC document uh, that is utilized widely in multifamily is a private placement memorandum. And so you need to thoroughly go
mhm,
through that document. I will say some of the better general partners that I have actually seen as far as bringing on investors and just
mhm,
very, very diligent in their investor relation activities, they have
mhm,
literally walked us through, which I didn't see that in the very beginning. You were kind of reading the whole paper, the document. It was kind of laborious. But with some of these other applications like cash flow portal, a general partner can kind of walk you through the entire private placement memorandum and
mhm,
bring you into that particular investment. So there's a lot of other applications that are out there that there were not out, way back in 2005. So
mhm,
there's more prevalence of customer relation management type of the CRMs, a lot more prevalence and a lot more options for investors to be utilizing. And
mhm.
that goes both ways. A general partner can make a choice of the CRM they're using, but as an investor, you're going to be part of that CRM. So, it makes things a lot more streamlined for you as well. So I would say the prevalence of some technology and software is really uh, been a great gain for Dan and I in the arc of our
Mhm.
real estate career. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you just touched base, great topic about technologies. And I see how much AI involved right now in real estate.
Right. And I
And
have seen, I have not utilized that as much as far as
mhm,
evaluation, but there are some general partners and there are some real estate investors.
mhm,
They're actually utilizing AI to potentially screen in or out uh,
mhm.
a real estate deal or opportunity. It's like, okay, is it going to make the cut? These are my factors. This is what I'm looking for. Boom,
Yep.
and then yeah, see what comes out on the other end.
Yeah, lots of differences, lots of changes, everything in dynamic. Guys, just wanted to remind you who watch us right now, who will be watching us in the future. Today, my podcast about private money in real estate investment world. And today, my guest, Sharon Riddle, wonderful real estate investor with experience more than 20 years. She actually has experience not just like investor, she is private money lender herself, so she knows this topic in and out from both sides. Thank
I
you,
do.
Sharon, for being
I do know both
today
sides.
with me.
I do indeed know both sides of that transaction for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, and actually, I wanted to ask you. So, when I started real estate about 1.5 years ago, I was focusing on creative deals, subject to in seller finance, and I know how difficult it is to work with lenders to put them on second lien position. And now I'm more focusing on BRRRR. BRRRR means we need fixed property and to refinance with DSCR in several months. But
Right.
we still need second lien position. We still need gap lender.
Right.
And some hard money lenders, they don't allow second lien lenders.
Well, see, that was
And
kind of the beauty of what I was doing, because we were acquiring the property ourselves. So it
yep.
was with a portfolio that we were self-managing, and I was
Hmm.
self-managing the portfolio.
Hmm.
But I will say, what you're talking about here, I've actually been part of a transaction where the investor was going to DSCR after rehab. So that was kind of a unique
Hmm.
play. But we were on this particular project in St. Louis for a 6-month window. Okay,
Hmm.
now he's got a title company called Dan, and he's got the loan lined up. So
Hmm.
what is he's going to be doing is he's actually going to have us as private lenders on another
Hmm.
property that has actually been used for fire insurance protection for more than one fire insurance protection tenant. So we have kind of graduated up his food chain in his company. And so we're going to be actually on this property for a year. So, and
Okay.
typically that property has been filled like the whole time, like multiple tenants that have experienced a fire, and the fire insurance company is
Hmm.
is paying for that rent as they're
Hmm.
being reconstructed. Yeah.
Hmm. Did you cover whole loan, or you've been as a gap lender for this transaction?
Well, actually, we were more of a gap loan for the first project that we were on, that we are
Hmm.
actually rolling off, because uh, he needed to get all of his rehab activity out of the way, and he needed a private lender to be that
Hmm.
gap. And because he had a
Yep.
solid business model, he was acquiring a lot of properties. He explained the entire process to us. And the great thing about Sam, he also sends us videos. And he's had
Mm.
video like on YouTube where he is describing, what he's doing with a property. And that's what he's utilizing to bring some private lenders on as well. But we also get videos emailed to us, so we
Good.
know how the project is proceeding. We kind of know what the timeline is. He loves to make these video. He and his staff love to make these videos where they're talking about what they're doing with the property. So they just really get off into the rehab. So, and I find it very, very interesting because of my single family self-management days. So, we can kind of be on the same wavelength, and it's just turning out profitable for each of the
Hmm.
parties, which should be a win-win situation. That is what you're
Yep.
striving for, with win-win situations. And what we're doing with them is definitely win-win. What I was doing with my
Hmm.
private lenders previously was definitely win-win. And I've strived for that really with any of my multifamily transactions too, because I uh, I ask questions too, the whole duration. Like if it's a 5-year exit for
Hmm.
for a multifamily project, I am in communication with the general partners during that time period. And I will
Hmm.
say, uh, especially during COVID, Arlene and Jacob Garza did an excellent job communicating to us as investors through that entire time period. So we knew exactly what's going on with the property. We knew what things they were doing for the tenants to keep them in the property during COVID. And so they were doing a great job communicating with us, and we knew what was going on uh, month after month. So
Hmm.
that's what I like, and that's what I look for, no matter the asset class. That is what I call white glove service, and that's what I look for, and that's what I want to give to other individuals too. And those are the takeaways I want people to have today too. You know, uh, look for that white glove service, and you should expect that. You shouldn't lower your standards. You should keep your standards really in a solid place, and your expectations in a very clear and just methodical place, and also in a very I would say low risk place, because we all, as business owners and as investors, we do not like uncertainty. We really like
Yep.
to know what our risk factors are.
Yeah, absolutely. With whoever, with private lenders, with hard
Whether
lenders.
whether it's limited partners, with multifamily general partners, whether it's self-storage, whatever the asset class is, that's where you want to be. You want to be in that low risk place.
Yeah, I agree. And how, in case where you were as in GAP lender on this transaction, what solution did you use to be GAP lender? Did you sit on second lien, or you came into LLC, into operations agreement, or how
We
it
we
works for you?
we were utilizing a promissory note.
Okay,
So
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 second
that's
lien is okay.
yeah. So that's what he was. That really was what he was generating. But see, I was also familiar with that, and I had private lenders that were they were perfectly fine with a second lien position. But I'd also demonstrated that we could successfully self-manage a portfolio even before the time period where we were bringing private lenders on. And we explained to them why we were using private lenders, and they're like, yeah, banks, they don't want to lend any money. I mean, that was like a no-brainer for them. They really got that because of that credit crunch time period. It was just really self-evident. And I would say even now too, with some of these higher interest rate time period like we've got, I mean, we are in an inflationary time period. Wow, that is the perfect time to be really working with private lenders, and for private lenders to be seeking out an investor to work with, so that you can have that win-win scenario.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing with us this information. It's everything interesting. And what dynamic do you see right now, private money situation?
Well, I will say,
Compared to some.
like with the person that we're working with, he is actually seeking more private lenders out. And because he is in an expansion mode, but he also has a really unique business plan with some of his set aside properties for fire insurance protection companies. So for the fire insurance claimants, they need those tenants. They need to put people in houses, and he kind of initially stumbled into that. And part of the reason that idea even worked with me is because we had one property in North Arlington, and we had a fire insurance company make an overture to us. And at one point in time, we did have a family in a property for a year in North Arlington, Texas. And they were having their particular house, because it was an electrical fire, it was having to be built up from the studs. They had to take it all the way down to the studs. So that was a pretty significant rehab project for sure. So all of that just kind of came together, because of the experience that I had. I understood the concept, and because with Sam and his company, he's in an expansion mode. He's looking to acquire other properties. He's looking to have a net of like 40 single family properties in St. Louis. Now, some of them will be single family rentals, but some of them will be set asides for a fire insurance company.
Yeah, I know several people who almost the same strategy, and actually it's great strategy to work with insurance companies.
I loved his strategy. I really did, honestly. And I thought, wow, you know, we kind of we had this one experience, but he has really made that pull that in as a process and a system. So he's very systematized in what he's doing, and I just really love that because he was growing growing the company, and he was growing the portfolio, and he had processes and systems in place to really be doing that. And he
Mhm,
loves, you know, he certainly loves his technology because he's a go high level guy. So,
mhm.
you know, he utilizes that in his business as well. So he definitely loves his technology as well, and he's very successful with what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Technology helps a lot. Guys who are with us right now, please, if you have any questions to Sharon, please don't feel hesitate, put them in the chat because we probably have another 5 minutes for our podcast. So please think about your questions. Sharon, just wanted to ask you. So right now we have syndications, we have funds, we have individuals who work alone. So do you prefer to work alone with leading your funds, or you like to work with funds?
Well, at this point in time, we've kind of been in the syndication camp,
Mm-hmm,
and um, you know, even if I was going into some a self storage acquisition, because
mm-hmm,
I network with some other people, they're still syndicating, so they're still operating.
mm-hmm,
But I, you know, because you know, I'm in Hunter Thompson's Raise Master mentorship group, his mastermind. There's a lot of people who they are fund operators, and Hunter and his partner are too. And then Tim Mai also is, you know, they're fund to fund people. Some of them they're kind of split between operators and fund to fund people, but it would just have to make sense for me as an investor in a fund.
mm-hmm.
Because I have been, you know, in the past, I've been spoiled getting my bonus depreciation. So I want to be able to get my bonus depreciation because I am actually managing two things, not only cash flow, actually, it's three, not only cash flow in the shorter term, also a successful exit. So we have the gain at the exit, but also
Mm,
tax strategy sandwiched in between because I want my tax advantages because I always have the goal of you know, getting down to as close to zero tax as possible. And that is because in 2019 at a mastermind with Brad Sumrock, we met Robert Kiyosaki's CPA, Tom Wheelwright. And so that came into our mind because, you know, we of the Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant, we didn't want to be in the high tax quadrant. And so that's why, you know, we have that three prong approach, you know, the uh, the cash flow, the short-term cash flow, you know, the gain on the exit, and we love a multiplier because we've had a multiplier in the past. So we'll see how things go
mm-hmm.
with with the debt. The debt's higher than it has been historically, but also the tax advantages that does bring. And you know, we'll see. There's been so much discussion that bonus depreciation will make its way back.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, we'll see what transpires. And it won't be
Yep.
sunset. It's supposed to be sunset like next year. So uh,
Mm.
we'll see what the political environment brings.
Yeah, interesting. We should talk about it later next
Yeah.
year about
Yep.
these changes. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think? What mostly cause to the money loss for investors? What are the biggest mistakes investors do?
Well, I will say probably not taking all the time they need to with their specific documentation. So, what are the terms and conditions? Always know the terms and conditions. And then also definitely vetting the general partners, because there are questions that I currently ask that I would never have thought to ask in 2005. And that is, yeah, that is because we've had so much debt. And there have been individuals who have just over leveraged, and their general partner teams undercapitalized. So that's why I ask in the multifamily space, that's why I ask, if there have been any distribution pauses, any foreclosures. I ask the foreclosure question now too. Or if they've had a personal or a business bankruptcy in another sector. Would never have thought to ask way back in 2005, but experience teaches you these things, and you do have to ask these challenging questions. And I have literally had general partners who have told me, no one has ever asked me these questions you ask me. But I think those are good questions. If nobody's asked you, why hasn't more people asked you? Because that's the investor due diligence. That's on the investor. But you should be transparent regarding, what your business environment has been. What has been your career? What have been some of the challenges that you have had, and what have been some of your successes? Because honestly, a lot of us like to just talk about successes, and we really should talk about some of the challenges and some of the pitfalls. And if there have been failures, you need to be very honest about that, because the job of the real estate investor is to keep themselves in a low risk position. That is your job.
Yep. Yeah, so much to know. Thank you so much, Sharon, for everything you shared today with us. Guys, thank you so much for being today with us, who watching us right now and will be watching us in the future. Thank you for all your support. And for conclusion, Sharon, couple advices for new investors.
A couple for new investors. I will say, one is to start. You have to launch something. So be knowledgeable about what you're doing. And the way you can be knowledgeable is you have to be around other people. So whether you start with a meetup, with a real estate investment club, you go into some mentor programs, you go to some masterminds. I have done all of those in my 20-year arc as a real estate investor. And I still meet newer investors in a real estate investor club in Fort Worth, Texas. So I still do that. So those are all options to you. I would say listening to some podcasts is great, but couple that with some human interaction as well, because you can learn so much from your peers, and they can collapse time for you in your real estate investor career. They can save you so much time, and they can save you from some of the pitfalls and the landmines.
Yes, awesome advice. Awesome. Networking.
Definitely. And in fact, I am, I've finished a chapter on a multi-author book that is The Network Effect. So I was asked to contribute a chapter for that. And I'm also launching an ebook probably this month. So it's going to be Spilling the Tea with Sharon Riddle on multifamily. There you go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sharon. It was wonderful conversation. Lots of useful information. I believe for our audience, it was great as well. Guys, please don't forget to like this video, to subscribe my channel, and I wish everyone great day. Sharon, thank you so much for being today with me, and talk to you soon.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Elena. I think we had a really fun time and a great conversation.
I agree. I appreciate your time a lot. Thank you so much, Sharon, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, everyone, for being today with us. It was great conversation with private money lender Sharon Riddle, my friend. She has experienced more than 20 years in real estate. She started as a single-family investor. Then she stepped into multifamily syndication, and at the same time, she is private money lender. So you see, she can help you guys. If you need her help, please reach out to her directly. I'm going to put her direct social media link under the video, and she's always happy to answer your questions. And I am a real estate investor myself, so if you need any help, if you want to lend your money in real estate, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to extend my network with lenders and with other real estate investors. Thank you again for being today with us, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.